Tyson Fury promoter Frank Warren says Joshua got his ass whooped by Andy Ruiz and should really think twice before going into a rematch. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also, subscribe to the channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. Now, when it rains, it pours. Frank Warren, who's promoting his fighter's fight this week with Top Rank, for the U.S. distribution, that's his fighter Tyson Fury versus Germany's Tom Schwarz, whoever that is. Frank Warren did an interview with the metro.co.uk, link in the description, and he's talking about Joshua's upset loss to Andy Ruiz, who's living like a king right now. Joshua got dropped 4 times in that fight, and his American debut, Madison Square Garden. This is what Frank Warren had to say regarding the loss. Anthony Joshua's had his loss. He had his ass whooped. Should he even be going back into a rematch? Maybe he should take some time out, recuperate, and make some dramatic decisions about his team. I'd be seriously thinking about saying no to the rematch because I don't know if mentally Joshua can be right for it. I would seriously consider changing his trainer and a lot of his team. His entourage is gigantic, right? And he says Barry Hearn calls boxing a business, but it's only a business because of what he does in the ring. If you don't win, then you got to look at your team and ask them to justify what they are doing. I'd want my fighter to be pissed off about a defeat. He seemed to me like a weight had been lifted. Joshua's guard is just too low. I've said it so many times, we know his vulnerabilities. We're watching his fights all the time. The strengths are obvious, and it's his weaknesses you look for. Joshua is easy to hit. I don't think Rob McCracken has taught him anything about defense. Joshua clicked with the British public. Joshua is clearly very deliberate in all his moves, but he has had a few breaks in the sport. He had a favorable judging at the London Olympics, and then he got a chance to fight with Charles Martin, the worst heavyweight champion ever, in my opinion, for a world title. And he only got that opportunity because Fury vacated his titles. I've been asked a lot about this week. Is the Fury Joshua fight gone? I think it all depends on the rematch with Andy Ruiz. Ruiz has taken Joshua's place. He's taken his place at the heavyweight table. No matter what anybody says about the value of Joshua, I don't know what he brings to the table anymore. Wow. I told you what I was coming to do this year, and that was to rid the boxing public of old media. And I think we're pretty much there. New media. Thank you guys for the support. You guys hear the stuff I've said. New media, Ego's Army. You hear everybody saying the same thing. It's looking real serious for Joshua right now. Lennox Lewis came out and said he should consider getting another trainer. George Foreman, he wasn't as harsh maybe as Frank Warren is being, but George Foreman himself offered his services. Antonio Tarver offered his services. There's a lot of people talking about, has he fired Rob McCracken? I don't even understand how this is a thing if we haven't heard it from Joshua, because Joshua did that video by 2-3 days after the loss to Andy Ruiz, and he was by the window in New York still. And he said, I'm keeping my team. I am not leaving. I will still train with Rob McCracken. So I don't understand where these people, like the rumors and people keep asking if he fired Rob McCracken. Until I hear from Joshua himself, he's still with them. And I told you, new media, I think Joshua's loyalties could get him in trouble. I don't think he's the sharpest knife in the drawer. And I'm not saying that to, merely be like, take a jab at him or something. I just don't think he thinks like that. He's thinking about friendships and, listen to what Frank Warren is saying. You got a big ass entourage. Like, who needs to really be there? And it's you discover these things maybe in losses. Adrian Broner, when he lost to Maidana, I'm sure he had a lot of people riding with him when the ride was fun, but you see how pertinent some of those people will be when you take that vicious L. Joshua took a vicious L. And like I said, I think his loyalties will get him in trouble. You know, Lennox Lewis has said his opinion regarding Joshua, and it's like Joshua resents Lennox Lewis for speaking out against decisions he's made. So it's almost as if he's going to spite Lennox Lewis and people like me or new media who are all saying the same thing, and he's going to do what he wants to do just to spite everybody. So that's his option. You know, he's a grown man. He's 6'6", 260 plus pounds. He can make decisions as he sees fit. But it's funny, everyone is saying the same exact thing. Frank Warren, Tyson Fury said he's done. You know, Wilder said he quit. Frank Warren, Lennox Lewis, myself, Bob Arum. You know, the list goes on. David Price, Amir Khan, we're all saying the same types of things. Joshua should look at a new trainer. You know, Joshua should really consider going into this rematch because it's a massive risk. You know, massive risk here. If Andy Ruiz proves it's not a fluke, which I would favor him to do, then Joshua's going to look crazy and his career is going to be even more in shambles. Joshua's a good fighter. He's an Olympic gold medalist. And it's funny that Frank Warren is now saying what I told you guys. You got to know your boxing. Joshua arguably lost the fight where he won the gold medal. And then listen what he's saying about Charles Martin. I told you guys these same things. Joshua, his whole reputation has been built on being a nice guy and the distinguished gentleman. And I have 4 belts and Wilder only has 1 belt. And Tyson Fury, he no longer has belts because he was on drugs, you know, and this type of attitude. So what is Joshua going to be now that basically your whole image is shattered because Eddie Hearns, Barry Hearns, Anthony Joshua, they made this a lot about material things like the belts. And when I was in my 15th fight, I fought a champion in Charles Martin, and you know, Wilder was fighting in Cancun but none of that really matters because each fighter has their own journey. Canelo Alvarez, when he fought Floyd Mayweather, he only had 1 less fight than Floyd Mayweather because his journey was different. Floyd come from a fight family. His uncles and his dad boxed. So he made it to the Olympics. That was his journey. Got robbed in the Olympics, might I add. Canelo, he grew up in Mexico. He had to fight club-style fighters at age 15 and just come up that way. Canelo's still a good fighter, though. You know, so each, you know, Golovkin, he's a silver medalist, and Canelo just beat him. So every fighter has their own journey. Golovkin, he had the more amateur experience, and then Canelo had to learn, you know, the old-fashioned way on the job. But Joshua's whole image has been comprised of certain things and certain, you know, he's undefeated, and look what he's accomplished in 22 fights, and he fought someone and took a risk in his 15th fight. But I tell you guys all the time, you got to look at what it is. They made it sound like he knocked out Lennox Lewis to become a champion, or Wilder, or Fury, or even a Bermain Stavern. He beat Charles Martin, who was very, very unproven. And the true new media way, now you hear other people saying what I've been telling you. Frank Warren saying the same thing. Frank Warren took it a step further and said Charles Martin is the worst heavyweight champion in history. So this spells trouble to me for Joshua. I keep saying the same thing. You're hearing other people say the same thing. He should really consider this rematch. I understand wanting to get retaliation. I understand wanting to get some get back. I understand losing power. I understand wanting those belts back because you feel like a part of you was lost that night. And it was. Andy Ruiz took that. But if Joshua goes into this rematch, if it doesn't produce a better result where he wins, then his career has taken a massive hit, even more so than whatever he's experiencing now, because that'll be his time to rectify things. So if he doesn't produce, then it's just a wrap. You know, it's not a wrap meaning he has to hang up the gloves, but he's not going to be regarded in the same breath. Like before, people wanted to see him fight Fury and Wilder. I mean, you don't really hear, he has Ruiz problems. You don't really hear that conversation coming up anymore. And there's no way he could lose to Ruiz again and be regarded as who he was. even if he wins versus Ruiz, I don't know if he'll be, the aura has been removed. It has been stripped. They need to really decide this. And then the thing is, Ruiz came in with the 5-week camp and did this. Imagine Ruiz with the confidence hike he got from actually winning and getting to travel to Mexico, being embraced by the fans, and, you know, this newfound fame that he's never had in his career. Now he's more confident. Plus he has full time to prepare. Plus he's probably in the driver's seat. So unless it was specified in the contract, you know, he might have some additional perks that favor him because he's in the driver's seat as the winner. Unless, like I said, Eddie Hearn, in a fight that they didn't think they would lose, covered Joshua's tracks and gave him leverage in the rematch. I know they have a rematch clause, so it's just a lot to consider. Plus, Joshua, according to him on his own vlog, on his own personal YouTube, right, which I told you was weird. Why is Joshua training for a late replacement, filming MTV crib style vlogs? I said this before the fight happened, weeks before the fight. It's clear he was more in love with the celebrity, to me, because you were supposed to fight Gerald Miller, a 317-pound man. Now you're fighting, you know, your team allegedly negotiated with Luis Ortiz, got nowhere with it, and then you landed on Andy Ruiz, and you up here switching opponents with someone who's not 317 pounds, really fast, much different in stature, and you filming MTV crib style vlogs like, oh yeah, welcome to my humble abode, I'm in Miami. Who trains in Miami? It's clear to me Joshua was, you know, he was out of his element. He's from the UK and he clearly doesn't grasp the United States. This was an American debut and you sitting up here doing MTV crib style vlogs in Miami, which is a part where gangsters go like that. Miami's a place where people go to spring break and vacation, and gangsters go to retire, you know, when they get out the life, shit like that. You want to go to a beach, celebrities go have an all white party or something, go to Club Live. That's not really somewhere I would imagine for your first time in America training, you would go train in Miami, out of all places, you know, to be fighting in New York. But now the cat's out the bag. Andy Ruiz already did that. And with Joshua keeping the same team, you know, I really don't know. What is he going to change? Frank Warren saying to himself, Joshua's never been a good defensive fighter. That's not something you can immediately learn overnight. So Joshua's going to have to try to overpower Andy Ruiz and, you know, string together some shots that get it done. But skillfully, Ruiz is just better. And they're robbing Joshua of the opportunity to even get better by putting him right back into the fire. Let me know what you guys think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. We working, but it's just crazy to see how new media, we put out a message and it sticks, and you hear industry professionals, trainers, fighters, promoters, they're all saying the same thing. Very dangerous rematch for Joshua straight off the rip. And I think this boils down to power. Eddie Hearn knows he's made a colossal blunder picking Andy Ruiz, because you didn't even pick a fighter that would beat Joshua that was in-house, like Michael Hunter or Dillian White, where you could at least have options on the rest of their career. So now Eddie Hearn has to floor it and hope Joshua could right his wrongs to try to get those belts back. If not, the heavyweight division as it sits currently is in the hands of Al Heyman and Premier Boxing Champs, and then Frank Warren has a good fighter, but all the belts will be with Al Heyman, and that's what they're in a rush to get back. But you can't rush coming off a loss like that, in my opinion. So we'll see. They announced the fight 2 days after the loss. They announced the rematch was triggered. Crazy. You got to look after your fighter, and I think that's what Frank Warren's saying. That's what I've been saying. New media.
So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.